you have somebody new to the team that mistakenly like destroys a service on his third week.
I did. I did that. He's winking. Yeah, it's me.
But, like-
I pushed code that caused some issues at Netflix. The first code that actually pushed at Netflix actually caused, and it wasn't a severe outage. Some people couldn't watch Netflix, maybe like 1%. But yes,
I don't know if it's obvious, but I'm black. And sometimes when I say things, people are like, it might sound aggressive. Also, when I'm excited, I talk fast. I sometimes raise my voice. And that's the thing, right? Like somebody that is experiencing that for the first time, like for example, you've worked with like a set of people from like different races or like a more diverse team. The way you do something might be perceived by somebody as this way, and another person as something else.
welcome to another episode of Beyond the Build, a podcast for software engineers where we talk about everything related to software engineering that isn't writing code. I'm here today with my co-host Okbe, and today we are going to be talking about being a good collaborator, being a good teammate, being someone that people want to work with. And yeah, we'll be going through our experiences with that and just giving some tips in general that has helped us throughout our career, and hopefully you can take away some lessons from it. Yeah.
First thing, always remember, right? Like software engineering, most engineering really, it's always a team sport.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not just you doing stuff. There is you, there is your team, and there's like the other people, right? And it's like, how are you a good collaborator with those different groups of people, right? Like what do you do about yourself to be a good collaborator? But then also like, what do you do with your own team to be a collaborator, to be really good at like, people want to work with you on your team. And then also like, what do you do so that like people outside of your team really have like a good experience when they work with both you and your team. So that's how I want to frame it.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I think we often think about it just in terms of our immediate team, in terms of the people that we're working directly with. But as I'm learning with my work at Netflix, depending on your organization, you're usually never always working alone, right? Your team is a small piece in this big puzzle, and ultimately you want to be able to work with other people within that space and make sure you are a good collaborator. So first thing that comes to mind for me when thinking about that is I'm thinking about the people who I've worked with who have been really, really good, who have been like influential. And what they did that kind of made me want to work with them, that kind of made me want to be really in their space, right? And I think one of the things that stood out for me, again, very early on in my career, they looked out for me.
Oh, fair.
Right? Like they didn't need to, but they did.
Yeah.
Right? They were like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing this, or maybe you should think about this project. Or I remember my PM, T, and her name is T, she would always tell me when someone got promoted so I could go talk to my manager about getting promoted, because she'd be like, hey, I'm hearing this. You're doing way more impactful work than this person is doing and they got promoted. Maybe it's time for you to go talk to this manager and see how you can get a promotion in. So I think on the non-technical side, I think that's one thing you can do to be someone who people want to work with.
Yeah. Like that team perspective is really good to start, because like you want to essentially be somebody that cares about your other teammates, right? Because like that, hey, like people are doing this, or like, hey, did you note this stuff in your brag sheet? Or hey, like, or like even when behind you is like, hey, did you see that thing that person did? But like that caring about somebody, not just like you mentioned professionally, but like also like personally, like, hey, you mentioned you took a day off yesterday because your daughter was sick. How is she? But like that caring about you, I think it always just makes it so that you are like connected to the person. It gives you a sense of connection with the person you're working with. So it's like, hey, how was your weekend? But like it's all the small stuff. But like generally, if you care about yourselves or your teammates, I think generally people generally have a good experience. I think they have a good experience when they work with you.
Yeah. I think it's, in hindsight, think about it, it can be hard to do because ultimately, right, we're just here for work.
Yeah.
Right? We're just here to get what we need to done. And so when you think about, okay, why should I care about this person, right? Ultimately, all I should care about is just getting my work done and just being done, right? But I don't know. I almost feel like the people who I still think about till this day, where I'm like, if I have a chance to hire a PM, I'm going to this person, have been the people who kind of did more than just the work that they were supposed to, or kind of like went beyond to make me feel comfortable, make me feel at home. Yeah. But again, as I mentioned, it can be hard to do because ultimately we just want to get the job done and leave. And that requires kind of almost doing extra on your part, right?
Yeah, and like I think the meta of that is like people don't remember all the details, they remember how you made them feel. And like that is a very important part.
Yeah.
But another part of it about like also the team perspective is like balancing credit. Because like you sometimes work with people and they are the ones that did every single thing.
Yeah.
Yo, like this guy started the server, started the project, gathered all the requirements, did all the coding, debugged all the issue, and then like made everybody happy. It's not really like that most times. It's a team sport.
Yeah.
And like balancing credits and also calling people out on the good stuff they do. I think that stuff is really important because like you're like, oh yeah, I remember when we had an issue 2 weeks ago that this person solved, and like sharing the credit around, I think it makes people feel like, you know what, I can collaborate with this person because he doesn't want his name on everything.
Yeah.
And like everybody knows somebody at work that their name is, they want, every time you work with them, they only want all the credit for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's always very toxic.
Yeah.
You never want to be in that space.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
I completely agree. It's typically those people who they come in last minute and they do some minute thing that is important, but not at the scale that they're shouting or that you're trying to put your name first on the doc, right? And you're right. Those, you typically don't want to work with those people, or rather, the stigma with those people is that they kind of take your work as their own, in quotes, and people typically don't want to work with those people. But again, in hindsight, the people who I've really enjoyed working with, they've been the ones who they would call people out, and sometimes they don't even get to shout themselves out. But the reality of things is, because of the way it is, because of that setting, they're automatically getting called out themselves because they're the ones who are presenting the work, and then they say, okay, this person worked on this person worked on this. Clearly, you're the one who owns the thing, right? But being able to give people their flowers while they're here and being able to say, hey, this person, even though the small part that they did in this, small thing, it was actually important and it was key, and making sure everybody knows. Yeah, that's really, really huge. Yeah.
The other thing on that same thing is like, making it a safe space, making like your team a safe space. So what does that mean? That means, for example, when somebody has a question that you don't think is well thought out, or when somebody makes a mistake, you make sure the person doesn't feel like, oh, this is all your fault, or like that is such a stupid question. How do you think you can even ask this? But like making it a safe space so that people feel like, you know what, I can make mistakes. Because like, bro, you're going to make mistakes in software engineering. There's no way around it, right? But making it so that people make mistakes, or like you have somebody new to the team that mistakenly like destroys a service on his third week.
I did that. He's winking. Yeah, he's me. But like, I pushed code that caused some issues at Netflix. The first code that actually pushed at Netflix actually caused, and it wasn't a severe outage. Some people couldn't watch Netflix, maybe like 1%. But yes, you go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, like you make that mistake, right? And then like, people are lining up to throw you under the bus. They're like, find the fastest bus, find the loudest director to throw this guy under that will scream, right?
Yeah.
And that safe space, like making a safe space so that I made a mistake, and you essentially don't make the person feel bad. Obviously, you make sure the person learn from it, and you make sure like there are action items so that it doesn't happen subsequently. But you don't throw one person out the bus and say, oh, like the only reason why this is a problem is because this person did something, right? Like that balance of like, hey, something bad happened and maybe it shouldn't have happened, but also realizing like it's a team sport and you're not trying to win for today. Because if it generally could be this one person's fault that it happened. The moment you throw somebody under the bus, right? Like she will, for example, always just back off, or like they, for example, will be like, hey, you know what? I don't even want to be in this space any longer, or like they start to douse themselves, right? And like that just spirals and just makes the team such a negative space. So I think like making it so that it's a safe space, people to ask questions, people to make mistakes, people to like goof.
Yeah. I think essentially a safe space for people to show up as their authentic self.
Yeah.
Now, if you're provided your authentic self is safe for the workplace.
Exactly.
Right? Because if your authentic self is not safe for the workplace, then that's a completely different conversation. But to your point about that incident that I caused, what actually happened after was I was doing the post-mortem for the incident. And when I was writing the document, when I was doing like the presentations and everything, there's a place there where you put what caused the incident. And then I said, oh, I made this change and I thought about this thing this way, but it wasn't that way. And that was the main cause of the incident. And I presented it to the team that way. And one of the L5s, or is it L5, yeah. She pulled me after that incident, after that presentation to the team. And she was like, hey, I don't think you should phrase this way, right? I reviewed your code.
Yeah.
We all reviewed the code.
Exactly.
We all approved it.
Exactly.
So it's not on you.
Exactly.
Yeah, right? She said it's not on you. Even before that, my direct mentor, the person I was working with, the second we saw the incident and we rolled back, we basically hopped on a call and she was like, hey, this isn't on you.
Yeah.
I reviewed the code. We all did.
Yeah.
So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. I wasn't feeling bad because obviously it was a change that even they would have made. So it really wasn't super, super bad on my part. But the idea of creating a safe space and not making the person feel bad is definitely huge. And so the feedback that she gave me there was, instead of saying this change happened because this incident happened because I made this change, the narrative should be, what could we have done to prevent this change?
Yeah.
That's what you should be presenting about. Yes, we know this is what caused it, but you're not the cause, right? If anything, what systems can we put in place to detect this before it even happens again? Yep. That's what your post-mortem should be about, and less about you causing this thing. Now, if you push directly to production without anybody reviewing, you're on your own. That's a completely different conversation.
Safe space doesn't mean you don't have responsibility.
Exactly. Safe space doesn't mean you don't have responsibility. But ultimately, creating that space for people to make mistakes, but also learn from the mistakes, is also a great way to be an awesome collaborator.
I think a really good segue to what the next thing I had was like, make it a space where people can actually get feedback and like seek feedback. But like, so for example, right, if somebody on your team is making mistakes, like obviously like MRs are the first ways to get feedback, right?
MRs are also pull request.
Yeah, so merge request or pull request. Yeah, it depends on GitLab or GitPod or GitHub.
Whichever Git-based thing you're using,
Yeah, but like make it so that like on your team, there should be mechanisms to give feedback. So most of the time your team has like a retro, if like your team is structured to use like agile, but there should be feedback structures within your team, right? So it's like, hey, like we are doing this thing, let's continue doing this thing. Last sprint or last project, these are the mistakes we made. How do we get better? But I think like as a team, that practice of figuring out what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, I think is really, really good, because it makes sure that it's not in the heat of the mistake that people feel they have to give feedback. You can time delay the feedback, right? You could say, hey, like, you know what, we have a retro next week, and then we'll get to this and we'll talk about this, and the emotions won't be as strong at that point in time. So like, I think like make it so that like, first of all, seek feedback for yourself, obviously, but also like give feedback, obviously, like give the feedback constructively.
Yeah.
Don't give it when you're angry. Don't give it like when like stuff just broke. It's really, really very unconstructive, not because like what you said isn't true, but because everybody's emotions are high at that point in time, right? So it's like that balance of like, make sure you have an environment where people feel like, they can get feedback and they can give feedback. What do you think? Because I think you already started talking about like how the person helped you with feedback.
I think it's interesting because Netflix, for example, we don't quite have sprints. We just work based on quarters. So there's Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? And we don't have daily stand-ups. Well, we have stand-up documents on my team, at least. Everything that does it differently. And you just put your updates in the stand-up doc. And everyone is kind of like an independent developer where they have things that they're focusing on. And sometimes you work with people, other times you don't. And so one thing Netflix heavily preaches on is getting that feedback, because it's interesting because they don't quite create an easy way for you to get that feedback. You have to go seek the feedback, right?
Sure.
There is no official mechanism set up for you to go and get feedback, whether it's during like a retro, as you said, or something else. And so what I typically do in my situation is I just ask right there, right at the end, just ask, hey, is there anything I'm doing that you think I can be doing better? Is there anything I'm doing that I can be doing differently? And I think the way you ask for feedback too is also very, very important. Sometimes I ask them to put themselves in my shoes and say, how would you have handled this differently?
Yeah.
You know how I handled it, right? But how would you have handled it differently?
Yeah.
Right? That way they think about it that way. And obviously, when you're on the other end of this, you have to make sure that you're giving that constructive feedback, as you said, right? I think it's important where it's hard to give constructive feedback.
It takes like reflection, and it takes like stepping back from it.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right? It is, quite frankly, a decent amount of work. And on the person who's giving the feedback to, if they give you feedback that's heavy, they may not also know how you take that feedback.
Yeah.
Right? So you, on the receiving end of it, you have to be open to it. Like, give an example. That's in PMT, who would go tell me, hey, this person got promoted, do this. There was one point in time where we're working on a project together, and she just came and told me, she was like, hey, there is no clear leader in this project. Why don't you be the leader?
Yeah.
And at that time, I was like, I don't know. She was like, lead it. She basically said, there's a vacuum here. Go do it. Now, someone could have thought like, oh, I don't want to be the one to lead, because it comes with more work. It comes with more responsibility. But she was like, hey, I'm a PM. From my perspective, I need someone who will be responsible. Exactly. And you're the best person right now. Why don't you go do it? And that was the feedback that she gave. And I've taken that feedback with me everywhere for the rest of my life, obviously. But yeah, I think on both parts, right? Giving the feedback takes work because you have to be reflective, and then taking it as well, you have to be open to it. Now, not every feedback would be good, or not every feedback you should act on, but obviously, sieve it, right? Pick the good stuff from there and act on it, and the ones that you don't feel are great, maybe try to have a good conversation with that person to understand where they're coming from and why they're advising you like this.
Oh yeah, and like always remember, right? Like feedback is also a perspectival thing. I love the word perspectival.
Is that actually a word?
I don't know, man. I just used the word.
Okay,
but like the feedback somebody gives you, you can explain something to somebody and they'll give you feedback A, and that person give you completely different feedback. So remember, I think it's Baz Luhrmann, but like the thing to always remember is that like feedback comes from the person's perspective, from the person's lens. It's like advice is always like a nuanced thing where you should learn how to balance people's giving you feedback from like somebody's personal opinion, and it's really hard. So like with feedback, get the feedback, take note, and then look for patterns in that feedback. Like reflect on it. Somebody can give you feedback and say, hey, you know what? When you say stuff, you are very aggressive, and it is a very valid feedback.
Yeah.
But also it might be contextual. Like the person might. So for example, Loki. I don't know if it's obvious, but I'm black, and sometimes when I say things, people are like, it might sound aggressive. Also, when I'm excited, I talk fast. I sometimes raise my voice.
Nigerians in general, when we talk, we do. If you ever seen a Nigerian talking to a group of Nigerians, it's very, very aggro, right?
Yeah.
So I think.
And that's the thing, right? Like somebody that is experiencing that for the first time, like for example, you've worked with like a set of people from like different races or like a more diverse team. The way you do something might be perceived by somebody as this way, and another person as something else. And it's a balancing act, right? Because it doesn't mean, somebody says, because you raise your voice and somebody perceives it as aggressive, that means automatically you should stop like talking excitedly.
Yeah.
There's a balance in it, right? There is, if you get it from multiple people, maybe you should take action on it. If just one person has a concern, and that one person isn't your manager, if your manager has an opinion about it, maybe you want to clarify.
You should probably exchange it. Yeah.
If it's a pair, then you should look for like that feedback from multiple perspectives. That means, for example, asking other people, hey, like during that last meeting, I kind of raised my voice when I started excited, but what do you think about it? Did you perceive it as aggressive? And then but you actually, like if somebody gives you feedback, don't throw it away.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you should immediately like start running because one person said, you raised your voice and it sounded a bit aggressive. That's not. It's a balancing act between like feeling like it's actionable and also like reflecting and getting other people's perspective about it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Let me see. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking about some other ways to be a good teammate.
I have a few things.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing you were mentioning though was like we've focused on like you in a team context. The other part of like being a really good collaborator is you yourself. So for example, have fun, be in a good mental space, be in a good like physical space. Because like, if you want to be a good collaborator, but you come to the office looking stressed, not having slept,
Just squeeze your face.
yeah, just angry, ready to fight. You could take all the feedback in the world and you could share responsibility. People would just be like, yo, that guy is like sauce,
Yeah.
It's like something is going on in this guy's life.
Yeah.
And people will feel like, like people actually want to share like basic stuff with you, but they might be concerned they're burdening you because like, it just feels like this guy is going through life. Like life is dealing with this guy.
Yeah, it's like you're not approachable.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. I think you have to take care of yourself first.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of be welcoming.
Yeah.
Which I guess it can be tricky for certain people because I've heard of people who are like, people don't approach them. Like me, for example, right? If you don't know me because of my height and my size, I've heard before that I am scary to approach.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I promise you. But I'm not. I'm usually I'm just a chill guy. Like I just like to code. And so if you walk up to me and we're having a conversation about anything, I can usually have a conversation with anyone about anything. But sometimes maybe because of the way people's face look, there are some people that have resting bitch face.
Oh, wait, no, resting. Don't say bitch because like people tell me that if you come to, like when I think critically, I frown. So if you come to a meeting and I'm actually thinking, I am frowning.
Yeah.
And if that is all of your experience with me, you would think like, oh, this guy be angry. But like then I meet people when I do like office retreats and everybody's like, oh my God, I'm cracking jokes and I'm so funny and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, Daisy different, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I completely resonate with that. But yeah, I think ultimately be aware of how your physical appearance and your physical nature is being read by people. Now, obviously, you don't have to do anything to like change it. I'm not going to go make myself smaller to make other people happy.
Use makeup to the office.
Exactly. or go and wear makeup. But obviously, I think in certain spaces, you do want to be aware of that. And another thing that I think about too is just, I think there are times when, this goes back to what we're saying before, right? There are times when there are certain situations that don't have to be a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
And sometimes just give the person what they want.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is very, very related to that senior-junior relationship or that like principal-junior relationship or whatever it is, where not every moment is a teaching moment. And I say this because some of the times in the projects that I've been working on where I've had the toughest time is because I am working on this thing. It's really hard, right? I've been stuck on this thing. I think we've had this conversation and I'm going to you, the principal, to help me with this thing. And you're trying to make it into a teaching moment. And it's like, there's some things that are teaching moments, but like you can see I'm stuck. You can see I'm struggling here. Help me, right? Help me, just give me the answer. But in that moment in time, it's not. And from my perspective, my job is to get the job done, right? My thing is to get the work done. And if I can't make progress because I'm being blocked by you and you're not helping me, I understand what you're trying to do, but that's not the right moment. So essentially understanding the situation, understanding the context before you perform specific actions from that point of view, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it does. It's like I tell people sometimes like sometimes it's good to know when you've won. If you see somebody that honestly you know is putting in the best, like sometimes you're just gonna have to let some things slide. Like everybody's not gonna be at the 100 every day, right? Everybody's not gonna be batting the 100 every day. So like hey, today the person batted it. Like last week the person batted the 100 every day, and today the person is at the 60. And like that's just what it is. And like directionally, like if the person is right, you don't have to.
Like I think just understanding that we're all people and people are not going to show up 100% every day because we're not machines, right? So yeah, I think that's what ultimately it boils down to. Understanding that people are people and being kind, right? Being the person that you would want to work with, being the kind of person that you would want to interact with. Yeah.
Yeah, the bad news about that is, with AI, when you tell AI, somebody's going to come and shoot me tomorrow if I don't get this task done, people say that putting that in your prompts help the AI go better, right? So it's like, people like AI because AI be 100% every single day. And then you can threaten AI. Yeah. You'll be like, I'm going to break your fingers. And then the code is better. Like the Java that the AI gives you is better. It doesn't work with people though, right?
Yeah, it really doesn't work with people.
AI likes that.
For sure. Absolutely.
But on the topic of still like you, right? Like, how do you personally, as yourself, be a very good collaborator?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think like responsibility and ownership, which is what you were talking about, but like just to hit the nail on the head, it's like when people on your team know that you yourself take responsibility and you have like a very strong sense of ownership, people are willing to collaborate with you because they know that you know what, something is failing because somebody else shipped something. You will not be like, it's 5:00.
Yeah.
I'm dropping the mic.
Yeah. Once, if you have that, it's not me, it's not my problem.
Yep.
Mentality, that typically doesn't fly. People don't want to work with you in instances like that.
Yeah. When you're like, oh, like, you know what, like that's PM's work.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, that person, like that very quick, that quickness to draw a line between, and like there's a healthy balance in it, but that quickness, especially when there is an emergency, to say, hey, this isn't on me, or when like you don't see there's a pattern of a problem, oh, this isn't on me, this is somebody else, or this isn't on me, I don't really have to do anything, so I'm just gonna back off. I think like not showing ownership makes it so that people just generally don't want to work with you.
Absolutely agree. Ultimately, there's a healthy amount of it, but you do not want to see problems as other people's problem.
Yeah.
You don't see it as a collective problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's our problem. We're going to work together to fix it. We'll either fix it ourselves or we'll find someone who can help us fix it.
Exactly.
That's typically the mindset that you want to be carrying in order to be a great person that people want to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other things to think about are like knowledge. Both knowledge of what you know and knowledge of what you don't know. Knowledge of what you know means like, hey, like our team is a back-end team that uses like Java, Spring Boot, Hibernate. Bro, if you're a good collaborator, you know Java, Spring Boot, and Hibernate.
Yeah.
You don't be like, oh, you know what? I don't know the answer. Like, bro, I don't. I'm not doing this today. I'm like, bro, like these are technologies that we need to be competent at work. Like, be competent at your job, bro.
Yeah.
Like, if
That's
you're not
true,
competent, even if you are nice, all that stuff, if you can't do your job, I'm sorry, bro. Like, we are not here for like fails or to vibe or be happy. We're actually here to be productive.
Because
right?
ultimately, if you can do your job, other people are doing it for you.
Exactly.
And the whole idea is that you're meant to be taking load off.
Yeah.
But now everybody has your work on their head.
Yeah.
Just because you can't do it or you choose not to learn or you just have a specific preference for something, which that shouldn't fly in a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you would be surprised, yeah.
But the other part is also knowing what you don't know, right? Knowing the boundaries of your knowledge. So, for example, you work on a Spring Java team, and then there's some like weird database thing, and you don't know databases like that, but you start to like spout like weird theories about like locking and I'm like garbage collection. I'm like, bro, like you write ahead log, you start to spout stuff and.
It's not adding up.
You don't know it. Like, know what you know and also know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And be willing to say, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah.
Don't be the guy that is like, oh, yeah, you know, like this is like something is going on, or like you're in a meeting with some senior people and then you just start to spout theories. Like, bro, I think
it almost boils down to being personable in some instance, right? Because you don't want to be that person, as you said, who thinks they know everything and almost starts chatting rubbish, right? Where you're just talking, cho, and at the end of the day, what you're saying doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or what you're saying is now adding more theories that's now making your team not to look good because it's like you're just doing too much. So ultimately, it boils down to you just saying, okay, hey, I am. What will a regular person here do? We don't know. Right? We don't know. Let's go find out.
Exactly.
And not knowing is not a bad thing, right?
It's
we don't know. Let's go find out.
Exactly.
Right? As opposed to say, to like talking about this, maybe it could be this, maybe it could be. Yeah.
And like, if you don't know, say, bro, I don't know. Somebody else on your team might actually know the answer, right?
Yeah.
So like, just be like, hey, you know what? This is the edge of my knowledge. I don't know. Like, maybe I'll take time off to go and research, or like call out somebody that you think might know and say, hey, like, do you know the answer to this?
Yeah.
But like, know the boundaries of your knowledge, man. You don't know everything. Like, that's why it's a company, it's a collaborative sport. You can't be strong in you probably aren't strong in every area, most likely. So it's like figuring out the balance in your knowledge.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And so we've done like your team, we've done you, but then I think there is still the other part, which is like your interaction outside of your team. So the way I think about a few things that I think about being a good collaborator, like outside of your team and just like things you do yourself. know and understand what really matters, like what is priority and what is not priority. Bro, if you're working on a team where like the code quality has not been good since day one, I'm like, it's not today that that code quality will be priority. Like your company might prioritize like velocity of shipping stuff over code quality. I'm not saying you should ship bugs, but I'm saying like spending like an extra like 5 days to document every single thing might not matter, right? Because like that's not what moves the needle. You're in a startup and like you guys want to ship stuff every single week. You want to be shipping features every week. Like nobody's trying to document anything, man. The day it breaks in 2 years' time, the unfortunate person that's taking everything 2 years will take care of it.
Yeah.
It is not a priority for anybody involved. So like understand what is important to your team and then like focus on those things. So like what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think understanding what's important to the org in general too, because as I said, it's not just your team, right?
Yeah.
There are a bunch of projects that you may want to work on, but the company isn't going in that direction, right? And you may have it on your roadmap, but they may come and say, hey, we have this opportunity to make the company X amount of, to make this impact within the company. And we need your team to help us do this, or we need you to help us do this. And in that moment in time, what you're doing may or may not be as important. But ultimately, figuring out how that alignment helps them move their needle, which in reality will also help you as well, right? And then trying to find that balance between everything. Completely agree.
Think about yourself in the grand scheme of what your company does. I think I was reading something recently that says that the job of everybody in a company is not just to write code, it's to like help the company move towards its objectives, which in most cases is to make money. So if you think about that, sometimes it's like, I could spend 2 extra weeks doing this brand new thing, but in reality, like sometimes good enough is good enough, right? Not priority. Like you could be like, oh, we could write this thing, this library from scratch that is perfect. But bro, like just use npm install something and like keep this thing pushing. Exactly.
Literally.
You're like showing off your creative brilliance in that. It's not the most important thing in that scenario versus like, just getting stuff shipped and moving on to the next thing that really matters.
Completely agree. Yeah.
The last thing to round up is like, I think for your team, like for like not your team, sorry, for like you and external collaborators is making the work that you do legible and understandable. So a lot of the time when you're doing work, you need to synchronize with team A, team B, but also your manager has to know what is going on. Other people have to understand how this impacts stuff. So like making sure that the work you're doing is legible, understandable, approachable, all the kind of things, so that when somebody externally is saying, we want to do this, well, where is Umar's project? Or where are they on this thing? They can easily figure this stuff out. And they don't have to like reach out and try to understand. But like understanding like it's a team sport and like saying, hey, your team needs to deliver for me to deliver. So like saying, hey, this is where I am. And this is when I would need what you're needing, what you're building, for example, right? But like making your work legible, making sure that the things that you do are very well represented. So like your documents are clean when they're external facing, they'll be nasty internally, your call. Or like people can approach the artifacts of the work that you do, right? And it's not just stuff that is like a complete mess when anybody else wants to approach it.
Yeah, I think it's important because it's a communication aspect that a lot of engineers are not good at, right? And that's what separates the mid-level senior from the principal engineers. Because when you're a principal engineer, it's not just your work, right? It's how are you impacting all of these places? How are you sending out communications about how this thing might touch this thing and how this thing might how this thing might play into a bunch of other small things here and there. And I think having those documents, which is very interesting because engineers don't like writing documents. Engineers don't like writing that. I think that's something AI is going to help with, but that's a conversation for a completely different day. But I completely agree. Writing those documents and making sure that your work is visible to other people. It also helps people want to collaborate with you more because one, they know that you are on top of things. Right? They know that you are going to get things done. And two, they know that you will potentially also help them be that person that kind of puts their work out there too, which is something that everybody wants essentially.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure that the work you do is very well represented.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll just round up, but I think what we tried to capture today was to be an awesome collaborator, there are like 3 layers to this onion. yourself, your team, and then like the wider audience of like your organization. And there's work in every single layer. But I think if you figure out how to balance all of those layers, people will freaking love working with you.
Absolutely. I think ultimately, be a person that you would want to work with.
Yeah.
Right. Be a person that yourself as a junior engineer would want to work with. Be a person that an external collaborator would want to work with. Be a person that someone within your team would want to work with. And yeah, that's ultimately it.
All right.
Thank you very much for watching, and thanks for listening from wherever. We will catch you on the next episode. Goodbye.